Khabib Nurmagomedov is back, and it changes everything from the lightweight division to the GOAT discussion. Him coming out of retirement shakes everything up. Let's get into it. What's the crack, everyone? Welcome back to Patron MMA, and today we're going to be discussing how this Instagram post could potentially change the UFC forever. So just a quick recap on the whole Khabib story. At the start of the pandemic, he was a 28-0 undefeated fighter with dreams of getting to 30-0. However, during the pandemic, his father and head coach sadly passed away, leading a lot of people to believe that he would never fight again. It was Khabib and his father's dream to get to 30-0. They saw that as the Floyd Mayweather record and something that could never be surpassed in the sport. However, what people didn't expect was that Khabib immediately after winning would announce his retirement, stating that he promised his mother that he wouldn't fight without his father and that he would retire with a 29-0 record. A lot of people close to him, such as his coach Javier and DC, believed that he was done. However, after just a couple of days, Dana White came out and said that he believed that Khabib would try to get that 30-0 record. Now, the debate went on and on for weeks with no one actually knowing what was going to happen, but Khabib putting out that Instagram post saying "see you soon" to Dana White gives me so much hope for a return. Now, what is Khabib returning for? That nice round of 30-0 record is obvious, but there's no clear contenders. Tony's booked, McGregor's booked, Poirier's booked, Gaethje's booked, everyone's booked, but there's been one fight that he's been calling out for a long time. One person that he wants to fight above everyone else to finish off his record and solidify his position as the GOAT of MMA. It's GSP. Both fighters have shown a lot of interest in this fight. GSP has never stopped training at TriStar. He's even done a practice cut to 155. Now, the problem with that is he said on Ariel Helwani's interview that he was too depleted, that he couldn't be competitive at that weight. So what does this mean? Khabib versus GSP for the inaugural 165 super lightweight title. It's a weight that suits them both perfectly, a division that a lot of people have been calling out for, and what better way to bring in a new belt than doing a GOAT versus GOAT for the new belt? It's a promoter's dream. This will be an absolute mega fight with the credibility and success of beating the other on their resume. I don't think there have ever been higher stakes in a UFC fight before. Khabib has the chance to become the champ and retire with that 30-0 record that him and his father wanted so badly, while GSP has the chance to become the first champ in UFC history, which would 100% solidify him as the GOAT, considering John Jones has only one championship reign to his name. And the best thing about it is there's no hold up in either division, with both fighters having clear intentions to retire after the fight. They're already booking fights around Khabib and his retirement without stripping him yet, waiting and planning to get that next successor. So the UFC clearly has the future of that division in mind and is already planning ahead. Now, obviously it's not ideal that the 165 champion would vacate the belt immediately, but it breathes life into a new division the way that no other fight could. I think the creation of that division would be so easy after having such a marquee fight. Put a couple 165 fights on that card and show where the division is going to go after the retirement of the winner. But I think one of the biggest selling points of the 165 division to Dana White and the UFC is its ability to entice Khabib to stay and stop one of their biggest stars from retiring. Although Khabib, if he won the 165 belt, would be 30-0, can you imagine some of the fights you can make off the back of it? Colby coming down, Usman coming down, Masvidal. Can you imagine a fight between Khabib and Khamzat in Moscow? It would be unreal. It would be just mega fight on mega fight. But the question then stands, why not just do a catchweight fight between Khabib and GSP? It would be a mega fight in itself. Why have to make a whole new division? Well, there's a lot of people calling out for the division. Fighters from both weight divisions have been saying for years about how it's too hard to cut to 155, and then the gap between 155 and 170 is just too big. You have an absolute mountain of fighters who have been going between the 155 and the 170 divisions, killing themselves to make the cut, and then just being too small when they go up. The likes of Kevin Lee and Paul Felder murder themselves just to make the 155 limit, and a 165 division would do them perfectly. The jump between 155 to 170 is just too big for some athletes. Like McGregor going up and fighting Nate Diaz at 170, he didn't really have to cut weight. I think the first fight he weighed in at 168. He was below the weight but that's his natural weight, as where Diaz was probably cutting from 190, 195. So whenever he's going in there at that weight, he has a 20-pound weight advantage. So why make the fight for a belt at all? What's the need for a new division? Can they not just do a catchweight bout? It would be a mega fight anyway. There's no need to make a new division on the top of it. After the lightweight division, the jump just becomes too big for fighters. To go from 155 to 170 is a massive jump, and then to go from 170 to 185, and then 185 to 205, the gaps are just too big for fighters. But the same thing happens at 170. When Tyron Woodley was the champion, he was trying to get a fight against Bisping at 185, and in a backroom conversation, Tyron Woodley said that he weighed more than Bisping, which is crazy considering there's a 15-pound weight difference in their divisions. What I think the UFC should then do is put the 170 belt up to 175. You don't need to change anything, just that's the new division, just make that weight instead. Then you've got 155, 165, 175 and 185. And then what I think they can do is test the success of the 165 division to see if a 195 division would be beneficial to the UFC or not. I don't see why they wouldn't make the division. You have the likes of Gilbert Burns and Michael Chiesa who have gone up to 170 and had a lot of success, while the likes of McGregor and RDA have been going back and forth from the division, showing that it can be done and that they're probably just too small for the 170 division. And even Nate Diaz, who just hasn't really claimed the division, he's been fighting at 170, but I feel like if the fight came up, he could go to 155. One thing I think the 165 division would really change is the whole process of weight cutting. I think then if the UFC saw the success of 165 and how everyone's just moved up one, the same with the 175 division, they've just moved up, it's not really changed anything, they've just gone to a different weight. This is the same system that ONE FC implemented. They cut out weight cutting completely, they made sure everyone stayed hydrated and fought at their natural weight. And it didn't really change anything in the sport. Everyone just moved up one division, they just moved up 10 pounds because that's roughly what everyone's water cutting anyway. Now obviously by keeping weight divisions there's still going to be an element of weight cutting, with fighters getting heavier outside of their fights and their camps. But it's when they're in their camps and they're training every day and they're losing fat and they're becoming leaner, it gets them down to that division naturally, as opposed to cutting 10-20 pounds of water in a week. I think the work that the UFC and other organisations has done over the last 10 years to legitimise the sport, bringing in new rules and sponsorships like the UFC's deal with Reebok, really pushed the sport forward and took it away from being seen as a barbaric sport. I think weight cutting is the last thing that separates MMA and boxing in terms of being on the same level of legitimacy. The thing about weight cutting is the media only picks it up whenever someone's done it badly, when someone's hurt themselves or has nearly killed themselves trying to do it. Like Michael Chiesa on the scales stood up and went like that, saying he's never going to make the weight again because he nearly killed himself doing it. As well, Khabib, whenever he was booked to fight Tony, was hospitalised with kidney problems because he tried to make weight in such a drastic way. I genuinely do think this is the last major hurdle the UFC needs to address in terms of the overall health of their fighters. The problem with the 165 division is that Dana hated what happened at 185. He hated that GSP just went away with his belt and it held up the division. But here are a couple of the ideas I think are floating around in his head as to why he would make the division. First of all, like I said, Khabib and GSP are both going to retire, so what better way to start a division than by giving it loads of momentum with no hold up. There's going to be a whole new division so the UFC can put on more title fights. As you've seen in recent years, the UFC's gone from mainly doing one title fight per card, now they're trying to put 2 and 3 title fights on most cards. So the addition of the 165 division gives them the ability to make those mega cards. If you're talking about Dana White and his ideas, you have to think of Conor McGregor, and 2 of the biggest fights that the UFC could make ever could come of the 165 division. If GSP and Khabib both leave, then that leaves a vacant title shot, and who better to take it than Conor McGregor? But who would he face? Jorge Masvidal down from 170 to 165. McGregor Masvidal for the 165 title would be immense. And because it's a new division, previous records and results don't really affect who gets the shot. It's just about the biggest name making the biggest fight, and that fight would be nuts. But what happens if the winner of GSP and Khabib decides to stay? If GSP wins, at that point he's the champ, and you know Conor McGregor can't have that, so he's obviously going to go up. GSP versus McGregor, champ versus potential champ would be nuts. It would just blow the roof off any arena and would sell crazy pay-per-view numbers. If Khabib wins and stays, then McGregor versus Khabib 2 would be an absolute mega fight. Khabib would love nothing more than to stop McGregor from being the champ and could put to bed the arguments that he didn't beat a motivated McGregor. A 165 McGregor versus Khabib would be a crazy fight, but would also be a fight where you would see the best in both of them, and one I think would be a lot more competitive. It would sell crazy pay-per-view numbers and is exactly what Dana White wants in a fight. But overall, even if Khabib is coming back, realistically he hates McGregor. He doesn't want to give him any spotlight. He doesn't want to fight him again because he already beat him. So if he is going to come back, there's only one fight that truly makes sense, and it is that GSP fight. Khabib wants GSP and GSP wants Khabib. I'm telling you, this is how you book it. GSP versus Khabib for the 165 title, International Fight Week 2021. And who's the co-main? Izzy versus Jones for the 205 title to make it the biggest pay-per-view in UFC history. Fact. So that's how I think the UFC should book Khabib coming out of retirement. If you like the video, drop a like, comment and share it with anyone you know who loves MMA. Cheers.